love coach. Let's find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Today, we are going to talk about personalities. And we're going to talk about how to find out more about your partner's personality and probably your personality. But we're going to talk about a very unusual way to find out about your personality. And I've got a guest here that I think is going to give us some very interesting insights into how to do that. I'd like to introduce you all to Warren Kennaugh. Warren, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Nikki. Great to meet you and great to be on the show.
I tell you, you know what? I was looking over your bio, and I love the fact that you said there are never enough Mindhunter-style shows on Netflix. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I look for that kind of thing when I'm looking for something to watch, too. I love those ones that get in there and kind of mess with your head and get you thinking, and I love it. Me and a friend, actually, every time we watch something, we text the cover of it to each other and go, have you watched it? Have you watched it? So
I know, and there's a real challenge, Nikki, to almost kind of get ahead of, in that case, the detectives, isn't there, and see the clues before they do. That's a fun pastime, also, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, I have actually stopped reading a couple of authors because I would do that with their books, and if I came up with a better ending than they did, I stopped reading them. So yeah, I'm like, if my ending's better than yours, then no.
Fair point.
Yeah, well, so, I never did that before I started writing. Actually, So,
there's a clue there. There's a clue.
Yeah, it's the things you do when you become an author, I guess, right? So let me tell you all a little bit more about him, and then we're gonna dive into his book and talk about personalities. He has a passion for understanding how others think. Should I be worried? Maybe. As long as you can't read minds, I think I'm okay. Let me see. For how others think, feel, and act has led him across a 26-year career as a consulting behavioral strategist, advising elite individuals and teams within large corporations and professional sports on the art and science of relationships. Trained at Harvard and Melbourne Business School, Warren is recognized as a profiling expert, author of 2 books, and over 30 publications. Believing that relationships are based too much on trial and error, he, with his business partner, Karen McCready, developed, I'm not going to tell you all the name of it just yet, I'm going to save that. They developed a code so that others could strengthen their life partner relationships in a fun and engaging manner. What makes the person you love tick is all very predictable once you understand their personality. And you're going to help us do that, aren't you?
Spot on. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, very good. So let's start with the beginning. Why do you think relationships don't work? Let's start with that, because a lot of them seem to have some issues. So why is that?
Look, I think that to some degree we're not trained in the area of relationships, and without getting too clinical about it, Nikki, we tend to come from a model of initial attraction that can be physical, emotional, mental. And then it's a bit kind of trial and error. And what we have a tendency to do is that we bump into our own barbed wire. So we enjoy someone's company, or we find certain things a little bit irritating. We change a little bit over time, so it certainly is about, when we get deeper into a relationship, about what actually changed about the other person. And there's too much general advice. There's too much, advice from, glossy magazines about what we should be looking for and why. And I don't think we actually have a personal growth or a personal insight approach to it. And by that, what I mean, we tend to attract people that are opposite to us, and then we get annoyed with them. So it's you know, it's a bit like, you know, we get attracted if you're a bit of a neat freak, then we get attracted to the person that's a bit generally kind of messy, and we think that's amazing, and we can kind of you know, influence and fix them a little bit, and then that becomes a little bit annoying, and things drift and change. So I think, look, in a nutshell, too much trial and error. You know, we've got, you know, some older style models about what we're kind of looking for. We don't really understand enough about the individual, and you know, we change and grow in relationships, and we sometimes get anchored to the things that first attracted an individual.
You know, or we may be too much alike, and we're both sloppy, and nobody cleans the house.
Yeah, and look, no one wants, you know, if I use the analogy, Nikki, no one wants someone sitting in their favourite chair when they come home. And by that, what I mean, look, if you're an individual that likes to, you know, is a bit, you know, likes to, you know, control the environment, friends coming over, great, we've got to, you know, scrub the place within an inch of its life, and, you know, everything's got to be pristine, perfect. The last thing that you want to do is to be competing with someone else who's trying to do the same thing. Now, ideally, you don't want to be, you know, with someone that's literally the opposite, who couldn't care about that and is still feet up on the couch and, you know, crumpling all the cushions. That's not what we want either. But we tend not to attract people that are identical to us. We attract people, or we're attracted to people who actually have a piece that's different to us that we find a little bit attractive.
Right. Okay, makes sense. Well, it's good to have some differences. That way we can grow and learn from each other. So, you know, at least that's more.
And it's when we take those differences personally that we're, you know, can be the sign of the beginning of the end. Now, I'm not to suggest that there's not some things we should draw the line about in relationships, but it's the moment that our partner's annoying habits become, you know, pretty well annoying, and we're you know, overly reacting to those, you know, there's some decision points to be made there, and it's mainly due to some degree, certainly at early levels, you know, a lack of understanding about where they're coming from, what they're trying to do.
Right. All right. So how can we best understand our partner?
Look, I think that most of us, no doubt there's some complexities in who we are, but most of us have got a set of familiar decisions or certain patterns in our life that remain the same. So let me give an example, because there's fundamentally three elements, Nikki. The first element is what drives and motivates and someone feels comfortable with. So this is almost like their hardwiring. And if I give you a bit of an example, and there's no doubt a lot of this goes back to you know, our early childhood. And it's a bit like that if I'm in a family and I'm young and I decide that I might be the academic one. And I kind of look out at a young age and kind of go, oh no, my sister's actually taken that. And then I might decide I might be the sporty one, find out my brother's in that role. And all of a sudden, you know, we find that, you know, grandma and grandpa are coming over, and, you know, mum says to us, hey, do that backwards somersault off the lounge, Warren. And they love that, right? So all of a sudden I do this little trick off the lounge. Grandma and grandpa are clapping. Mum and dad are, you know, standing up. And I kind of go, I get it. I'm the funny one. I'm not the academic. I'm the funny one. So we fast track forward. So we've got to work out a way to navigate the world. So we fast track forward. I'm the funny one at school, trying people's shoelaces together. I'm the comedian. I don't take things too seriously. We fast track forward in my career. I might go into sales as an example, you know, where we can have a little bit of fun. And all of a sudden one day, you know, someone says to me, or my partner says to me, I wish you'd take things more seriously. Now, that's a real rub for me, right? You know, because I say, and then we get very protective, and I say, let me tell you about taking things seriously. My sister took things seriously, and now she's got depression. She overstudied. My brother took his sporting career too seriously, and now he's actually got bad knees and can't walk properly. So let me justify my position about why it's good for me to actually be the funny one who's the life of the party. So that starts at a very young age, and it's very predictable. And if we can gain an insight into understanding the way someone is hardwired, all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
The second level we're looking at is about a person's individual strengths. Now, that's very, very situational. So what we know is that there are some very empathetic people. There's some great people that are really great at getting things done and tasks. There's some driven people. There's some fun people. There's some very accommodating people. These are all their favourite pet behaviours that come out of who they believe that they are. So again, if you can get a bit of a sense about my hardwiring, if you can kind of go, look, Warren's really good at these areas, then obviously from a relationship perspective, this actually becomes a lot simpler to understand and easier for you to actually support and enable me to have some of the things that I'm naturally good at. And finally, the third thing is about under stress and pressure, looking at how I manage myself. And again, based on some core hardwiring, what I'm good at and how I'm likely to shoot myself in the foot are all quite predictable. So I would say they'd be the three things to kind of look at. What am I good at? How do I manage myself under stress and pressure? All of that's very predictable, and also what motivates me and what I'm drawn to.
Okay. Now, for the listeners, explain what is personality and why should they care?
Yeah, great question. Look, personality is a set of preferences that can be predicted. We know that through academic stuff, and I won't get into that at all. It's a series of how would you prefer the world to be, and we know things like simple things like are we calm? Do we like things neat and tidy? Do we are we overly generous and wanting to help people? Do I make it about myself? So there's certain things that are hardwired into us that tend to some degree not to change. Certainly over time, as we get to be a little bit wiser and a little bit older, we can actually see some of these things in play. So it's almost personality best defined as a series of hardwiring, a bit like that we would have in a computer, that shows us some predictable patterns. Now, we've got some flex within there, there's no doubt about. Why does it matter? Because you're bumping into that with yourself and with your partner when you're in a relationship. That's what you're doing. It's some of it can be changed around choice and modification, obviously, if you've got a really strong relationship. But if you truly understand what drives an individual, first of all, it creates greater empathy and greater opportunity for love and connection. And we don't take things personally anymore, like we probably do in our younger days.
Okay. You've got me a question here that I don't totally understand. So I'm going to ask you the question. I want you to explain the question and then answer it for me. How about that?
Sounds great.
Okay. It says, what are the pitfalls of traditional methods and why don't they work?
So look, traditionally, we're not really trained about relationships, and in the old days, many years ago, you kind of got married. It was a life thing, and you got to either like or dislike each other over time. There was a real tradition around that. We've moved. In recent times, we've moved to being a lot more fluid about relationships, and we're becoming more sophisticated about them. About looking at methods to meet people and engage people. It's just gone through the roof over the last 10 or so years. And, part of the fun is no doubt trial and error. There's no doubt about that. But if we're kind of looking for, deeper connections in relationship, there certainly is a need to become a little bit more evolved about how we actually work out whether the person that we've got in front of us is the one that we actually should be with, or is the one. How we can learn and grow in relationships is now more evolving, and we're becoming less reactive in relationships. and more proactive in relationships. So the traditional methods that maybe our parents used, or things that have used in the past, they're almost a bit out of date, like most things are today. The fundamentals are still there, but how we go about things are very different. So it forces us to be a little bit more evolved, a little bit more curious as to why things happen or don't happen.
True, and agreed. Okay, so tell us about your method, and I know that your method is easier and certainly more fun to help people to understand their partner. And I'm going to steal your thunder and say that the name of the book, which I was holding back earlier, is called The Critter Code, which I think is absolutely adorable. And I was looking over the critters actually when we started the call. So tell us about your method.
So look, for many years as I've worked with people, they've been curious about not only themselves but about how others think, feel, and act. And for probably 6 or 7 years now, I've been a little bit frustrated that there's been no books around. And sure, there's some great books around influence and persuasion. There's a lot of ones about personality, but it tends to focus on yourself. And I kind of thought, wow, isn't it interesting that I couldn't find anything at the time that was actually focused on me understanding another person? And that's what a relationship's about. Plenty of stuff around how to understand yourself, and that's all good work. So what I with my business partner Karen McCready have developed is a series of questions that you can ask about your perspective of your partner's behaviours, of how they act, on things that drive them and things that stress them. So it's your perspective captured in a questionnaire. From that, you actually you get some information about what type of critter that you're in a relationship with, and there's 9 of them. So you've actually got the busy bee, who is fundamentally a perfectionist, and we've tried to make it fun and insightful. You've got a lap dog, and like a wonderful lap dog, lap dog partners are always wagging their tail. They're great. They love seeing you. They're very generous. You've then got a peacock where it's all about, look at me, aren't I fantastic? You've got a zebra who's a bit weird and quirky, really innovative, really artistic, very special and different. You've got an owl that's all about, being alone and, very intellectual. You've got a sheep that actually follows the herd and is very loyal. You've got a chimp, which is a bit like the one I described a bit earlier, life of the party, mischievous, charming, all over the place. You've got a rhino that's very leader-like, but also quite domineering. And you've also got a jellyfish that is very much just goes with the flow, thinking about a jellyfish in the ocean that gets swept along with the current. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to kind of go, let's understand our partner and have a bit of fun. What type of critter are they? And also what we've developed is some insights about each critter's most annoying behaviour, the thing that's likely to drive you nuts. So you can get a bit of an insight into why they do it, how they do it, and how to stop reacting to it.
Okay, I got a question. Say I do this about my boyfriend, and he fills it out on himself, what are the chances we're going to come up with the same critter?
Yeah, great question. Look, we do see that. Ideally, what we'd say is Nikki, you do it on your boyfriend, and then he should do it thinking about you. Okay. And wouldn't it be a great conversation to kind of go and forgetting about for the moment about what we view as right or he views as right. Now, there's obviously a certain part of that. But what we found is really interesting, and I had a really great comment from a customer the other day who said, I've been married to my husband for over 25 years, and when I first went through and did it and got the report, I couldn't disagree more. And I said, okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. She said, I then slept on it for a couple of days and realised that this is an element of him that I hadn't expected to see. And it was interesting as we spoke about this, and she said, "This is I never saw this in him." She said, "I now believe it's absolutely right." And then we spoke about, wouldn't it be great? And he was a chimp, so life of the party, loved new experiences, loved being out, and she was a stay-at-home person. Always get, him wanting to be out all the time, having fun all the time, used to drive her nuts. And I said, wouldn't it be amazing if you actually kind of said, hey, let's go out and have some fun? She said, I hadn't even considered that. So it brings elements of discussion. And wouldn't it be great to have a discussion if, if your boyfriend completed it, that you'd sit down and have a discussion? Because it's about being in a relationship that has a discussion to kind of go, let's have a look at how some of this might be true, right? Let's have a look at some of this might be true. How does this impact our relationship? Oh, well, this is the reason why I do that. I didn't realise it annoyed you. So it drives me nuts. Wow, okay, how could we talk about that? So what we're trying to do, is to get couples to actually sit down and explore some elements that might be rubbing them the right way. Rather than just kind of going, isn't it great that you're a Taurian and I'm Cancerian? Not that there's anything wrong with that,
right?
But it comes at it from another angle. And what we're trying to do is to get people to have a discussion. That's
right. Well, I'm all for things to get people to communicate. So yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So you may have touched on this, but just to make sure that we got it. So what are the specific elements of the critter code?
So there's basically three of them. There's what we call, and we try to keep them in code terms, bearing in mind the Mindhunter stuff. So we've got one element which is called the DNA code. So why do people do what they do? What motivates them? What are their values? So the DNA code is very much about how is someone hardwired. And if I go back to that example earlier about the mischievous, playful, rolling off the back of the lounge, that's that. I kind of go, I know my place in life now. I'm the funny guy. I'm the comedian. Right, so that's very much the DNA code, and we get very protective of that. We get someone challenges that, we push back. That's the reason a lot of disputes start. Someone says, "Hey, Warren, you need to be more serious," and I kind of push back on that because I don't have anything else. The second piece, and we tried to keep this again in the code mode, was what we call the hero code. So what is what are their strengths? What are they really kind of great at? Where do they shine? Where do they flourish? Where do they thrive? What are their specific sets of superpowers that people really like and it really serves a place in the world? So it's called the hero code. And then, of course, in saying this with a smile on my face, Nikki, we've got the villain code. What do they do under stress and pressure? Where they're likely to when we're under stress and pressure, our behavioural choices narrow and we get a little bit reactive. So when I'm being a bit of a villain, what does that actually kind of look like? And every critter has a predictable DNA, hero code, which is about strengths, and also villain code, a specific thing that they actually do that probably annoys the bejeebies out of their partner. And so what we've done is, and we're still developing the critter code, so what we've done is we've developed a report that people can actually gain a bit of an insight after doing the test, to get an insight into what's that most annoying behaviour about my critter and how can I manage that better rather than just being irritated by it, right? Yeah, because what we do is that, if anyone that's been in a relationship, for more than a short period of time, when we, in our early in a relationship, it's all very blissful and we don't find any faults, and isn't he and she amazing? And some of our friends are rolling their eyes because they can see past that. But what some of those villain code behaviours do is that they press our own buttons. So if I give you a bit of an example, you've got the bee. If you're in a relationship with the bee, they want to make things right. They're really self-improvement focused, which is their DNA code. They want to get things perfect. It's very much about making discerning decisions, being right, having things the way that they should be, having order. Now, the special superpowers are very much in elements like that, about how do they organise. Those people make fantastic people as far as accountants go, and judges. They're very discerning and very good in practices like the law and professional consulting. That's where their superpowers and their hero code really plays out. But their villain code, Nikki, they can be really perfectionistic. They can be really kind of punitive and very, very critical.
Huh.
So these are the people that, if you're trying to be helpful by stacking the dishwasher, need to come and repack it, and also let you know that unless you pack it right, it's never going to do the job properly.
Yeah, see, I know people who do that. I was just so thankful somebody would put the dishes in the dishwasher. I'm not about to touch them.
Spot on.
Because what? They may not do it again.
You're spot on, Nikki. So what we learn if we're in a relationship with a bee and you don't want to stack the dishwasher, stack it badly a couple of times and you'll never be allowed to stack it again, right? So, we kind of learn this, but needing to have everything perfect and pristine, and that can be an enormous strength, but there are times when you're just kind of going, we don't need to prepare for the house to be photographed by Vogue magazine. It's just a couple of our friends coming over. We don't need to do a full top to bottom clean, spit and polish for 5 hours when our friends swing around just for a casual pizza.
Exactly. So is there already, or is there in the works, a decoder for if, say, you're a chimp and you're with a bee, how to make your relationship better?
Yeah, great. And so what we've decided to do is actually start with the villain code, and we've called it the Curb Your Critter Report. So it's about how to start to get a different relationship with each other when you're rubbing each other up. Now, even good relationships go through this, right? So it's not like it's just focusing on toxic relationships. There's little rub points and bumps and grinds even in great relationships. So it's very much about looking at, wow, isn't it interesting that you're a bee and your boyfriend's a chimp, and isn't it great about how when you're wanting, and as an example, you're wanting to be pristine and perfectionistic, and all he wants to do is kind of just go out and have fun. So you're wanting to get the house in order because you've got some special friends coming over, and he turns up late because he's been out having an amazing time flying a kite, and so he's got no attention to detail. And of course, we can sometimes see discussions and heated battles, and I'm saying this with a smile on my face, World War III erupting about how, and we take that personally, how he doesn't care about how you've got to do all the work, about how this, how that. And all of a sudden that starts to grind. So it really is interesting when we're sitting down with our partner, we're actually kind of going, let's assume some of this is true. In what way does it actually impact our relationship and drive you crazy? And what we've pulled together, Nikki, is a 5-step process about how for someone to manage that. And the first step is about looking at what buttons is that pressing within you. So, the bee is just doing what the bee does. Right? It's not personal. The bee is just being the bee. They're being, improvement focused, perfectionistic, a bit nitpicky and critical. Going over the place with a white glove, looking for dust. That's what they do. It's not, So how do you actually claim and own the feelings that creates within you? The second point is around not reacting, strategies to actually stop engaging, stop buying a ticket to, being critical of that. How that you can actually have empathy for that person, because wouldn't it be great to kind of go, wow, geez, must be important to Nikki because, we've got the major forensic clean going on. These people must be important to her. Why don't I give her a bit of a hand? Right now, that all of a sudden starts to create a new relationship. How that you can actually share your frustration in an objective, truthful manner that doesn't cause World War III, and then also how to crystallise some new understanding and move forward. So we've developed not only just, isn't it amazing how the critters have got a villain code, and how annoying that can be and how insightful and how predictable it is. We've also instituted a process there where people can actually understand it, not react, have some empathy, have an honest and truthful discussion, and build an understanding moving forward. So we've tried to give some really practical tips around that, which is some interesting feedback around how accurate and insightful it is.
Interesting. So kind of trying to neutralize the villain in a way.
Yeah, and almost look, the villain. And again, we're trying to make this a little bit insightful and fun. That's how we kind of come up with the name. So of course, we're not technically talking about that. With the villain code that someone's a bank robber or something like that. We're not. That's not what it's about. So what we're trying to do is to actually kind of go. Look, there are very much some patterns around this. Someone's likely to be not having a good day. How can you see some of this coming? Because it's all very predictable once you understand what you're looking for.
Right.
How can you see some of this coming? How can we be a little bit supportive and a little bit gentle, but also share with them at the right time about the impact on us? So this is not a one-way street about just suck it up and just allow them to have their way. But someone needs to make a change in the relationship if there's rub points or flash points in the relationship. Only one person needs to change to create space. Only one person needs to do that.
Well, that's it. If it happens one time when somebody's coming over, it's going to happen the next time when somebody comes over.
You got it. And it gets to the point where if we don't address it, then all of a sudden I'm rolling my eyes and dreading the next time, my partner's special friends come over because I've got to take the morning off and I can't go do some of the fun things I'd like to do. I've got to do this forensic clean that's never good enough, and we're all getting kind of stressed and don't use that toilet, and do you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, we're meant to be having a bit of fun, and it's creating a real tension in the relationship to the point where we're kind of going, I would prefer your friends don't come over.
Well, that's why I was asking, because is it you always give in to the more picky person, or is there a resolution to kind of say, okay, this is a little much? Is there more of a compromise kind of thing?
Yes, spot on. So couple of key things here. What we know about relationships. If I can stop reacting and start understanding, that enormously makes a pile of difference. You said it a moment ago, Nikki. A lot of this stuff is predictable. So if I can kind of see it coming, I can be a little bit supportive before we get to code red, if that makes sense.
Right.
And secondly, if I can stop reacting, if I can stop getting angry, if I can stop my buttons getting pressed, then all of a sudden I'm in a better position to actually support, but also have an objective conversation.
Right.
So this is about creating another path. Because what normally happens, in relationships, if we've been in it a while and we find our partner quite annoying, we start to steel up ourselves and kind of go. I start whinging, 5 hours out from the friends coming, kind of going, oh, here we go again. We don't work. We're not doing medical procedures here. We don't need to scrub the place, to surgical precision, And then, of course, I'm being, provocative and critical, which is not going to, if I'm in a relationship with a B, which is not going to do anything apart from push them deeper into the corner. So we're going to be having a fight about this, and in 10 minutes' time, the friends are coming, and we're not talking to one another. And we need another way. We need another way to manage that. We need another way for us as a couple to move forward down a path. I may never like it. Let's be clear about that. But if I can gain an understanding of it and develop a way that I can manage and support, and isn't that what relationships are about? It's not just about proving that the greatest. I was reading the other day. The most powerful words in a relationship is "I am right." And if we're getting to those levels, right, it's probably not good. So how can we stay away from Flashpoint? How can we see what's kind of coming? How can we not jump on a hook and not be triggered by the things that it drives in us? How can we have a little bit more empathy? And how can we have a discussion to kind of go, hey, I see this happen a lot of the time. How can we best work around? It's got a bit of an impact on me. How can we negotiate around this so we come from a different position? And to some degree, Nikki, we could broadly say that's about compromise, but it's actually not about. It's not about selling out yourself just to make your partner happy. It's not what this is about. This is actually about two people in a committed relationship finding a new way to work something that's rubbing the relationship.
Well, and seeing it coming and dealing with it before it gets to code red is a huge help. So, because once it gets to that point, yeah.
Well, it's a bit like, Nikki, if every afternoon, I have a tough job, so every afternoon, I stop at the club or the hotel or the pub on the way home just to have a couple of drinks to loosen up. After I've done that, for a couple of weeks, then that's the norm.
Yep. Right.
So if I'm in a relationship with a bee and we're doing a surgical clean 5 hours before the friends come, I learn a way. If I don't have a clever way to negotiate that, I learn another way to negotiate that. Like I might busy myself in the shed, or I might go to the ballpark and do something down there just to get out of that way. Now that may be okay. But if every time the friends come over, my only strategy is to disappear, that's not going to work in the longer term, is it? That's not supportive. No. I'm annoyed. I come back when we're all kind of ready to go. I'm not helpful to my partner. You're never going to win Partner of the Year award if you do that, are you?
No. Well, not from your partner, no.
No, not at all.
Maybe from your darts partner down at the club, but yeah, okay.
Spot on.
But so, what are the because we sort of covered this in pieces, but what are the various ways that the Critter Code helps relationships? It's going to help communication, which, like I said, I'm always looking for communication assistance. Yeah. Going to help them to see problems coming.
Yeah.
It's going to help them to find solutions to issues.
Yeah.
What are some other ways it's going to help them?
Look, it's going to help with empathy. It really, the moment that we actually can stop taking things personally, then we can actually be supportive. So it's actually going to bring people closer. If we can stop being triggered and stop reacting to our own villain code, because that's what it kind of does when our partners in their villain code, it to some degree triggers ours, and it can enable us to remain objective and supportive. So and also gives us understanding. It gives us understanding that this is happening again. It happened last time. If I can be empathetic and supportive around this is going to give us a new way to actually learn and grow and develop with each other. Otherwise, what we could be doing, Nikki, if it becomes this constant grind within our relationship, I'll go down and spend time playing darts and go bowling with my friends a bit more, and all of a sudden we're starting to live separate lives, and that never ends well.
True. You know, once I actually learned the concept of patterns in your life and relationships, I started noticing them very easy.
Yes.
But until I had actually thought about it, I never noticed that.
Yes.
But yeah, once I thought about it, it's like, man, that makes a lot of sense. You know?
And Nikki, I love what you just said then, because when we're not noticing, then it's a problem with the other person.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Yeah, why is it that we always need to, we can't go out and have a coffee in the morning because your friends are coming at 7 o'clock that night? Why is that? Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden that becomes a confronting conversation. It almost doesn't matter what the other person says. Come on, they know who we are. We don't need to be doing all this stuff. We don't need to be, making beds and repainting walls and, polishing mirrors. We don't need to be doing that because they don't even kind of look, well, it's important to me. Yeah, well, it's and onward we go. The moment that, and you've just named it, Nikki, the moment that we can actually see, my partner's friends are coming over. I know this is kind of important to her. I'm going to see what I can do to help. I'm going to kind of go, okay, I won't be going out and, having a coffee with my friends that morning. I'll actually stick around and see what I can do to help. That changes the whole relationship. Do I have to like it? Absolutely. Do I ever understand it? Probably not, but that's okay. And would I do it differently? Absolutely. And that's okay too. But then being able to appreciate the differences in someone without immediately, jumping to code red.
Right. Better to try to avoid code red, people.
It's too late. The moment that we're pointing fingers at one another, the genie's out of the bottle, and it only ends, only ends hopefully with someone apologising, today, tomorrow, next week. And it could have all been avoided if we only, understood, had some strategies that, again, coming back to why, to some degree relationships don't work, is because we don't have enough strategies. All we're doing is reacting.
Right. Reacting is not the best policy.
No, and by the way, Nick, welcome to the human race when we're having a bad day ourselves and we do get a bit, let me give you some feedback. We're all human. There's no doubt about that. But by the time we get in a groove in a record, it's very, very difficult to get out of it.
Yes.
Very, very difficult to get out of it.
So do you find that all people align with one of the critters, and do people possibly align with more than one?
Yeah, look, great question. There's no doubt that we're complex creatures, and what we've found is that the majority, if not all, the people align to a large degree to one of the critters. And there's certainly elements that align really strongly. And what we're trying to do, we're not building and there is, by the way, there is no bulletproof system that covers off every element of what someone does. There's no system around that. But what we're trying to do is have a little bit of fun with this and kind of go, wow, isn't it interesting that this come back and you're a bee or a lapdog or a rhino, or isn't that a bit fun? And let's be a bit lighthearted about this, and let's see what is relevant in our relationship about this. And we've had people kind of go, wow, I didn't realise that my partner saw me that way. It's because wonderful discussions and wonderful self-reflection to kind of go, okay, if they're kind of seeing me that way, and some of that certainly rings true. I want to have a bit of a think about that myself. And isn't it great now how we can have a discussion about how I see them? So, no bulletproof system. There's nothing in the world that's actually 100% right. Feedback that we get is 80% of this is incredibly much in the ballpark. About another 10% is a bit curious, and another 10% is, wow, I didn't realise that. A bit like that example I suggested earlier in the show with the lady who'd been married for 25 years and hadn't considered that element her husband's personality. So it's we find people are aligned. We're trying to make it a little bit of fun. It's not a forensic test. It's a lever to actually have a discussion with someone you've invested a lot of love, time, and energy with to kind of go, isn't this interesting bit of fun, and how could we do this better?
Right. Well, and it shows in the way that you've named it, and the way that you've named the critters and that kind of thing, that you're putting the fun element into it, which I would think pulls more people into it and would make some people more prone to do it that don't want something that feels clinical. You know what I mean?
Spot on. And there's a thousand personality tests online. You can do it for free.
Right.
Myers-Briggs and all of those great ones. And what we've tried to do, Nick, is keep the fun going. So as an example, if you're in a relationship with a bee, you're actually a beekeeper. Right? That's who you are. If you're in a relationship with a peacock, you're a peacock preener, because they're all about how do I look? Do I look successful enough, Nikki? Look at my trophies on the wall. It's coming up to Christmas. We should get a photo of me and my successes to send out to everyone to show what a great year I've had. Right, so peacock preener, you've got an owl handler, you've got a sheep herder, you've got a chimp chaser, you've got a rhino wrangler. So what we've tried to do is identify not only the person that you're in a relationship with, but also have a little bit of fun and say, what does that kind of make you? Because that's who you've chosen. Let's not lose sight of the fact, right? We've all made choices about the people that we're in a relationship with.
Right. Makes sense. Like, what was it, jellyologist, I think it was?
Jellyologist, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Someone who's chosen a jellyfish to be in a relationship with. It's just, lovely traits, very, very accommodating, easy to get along with. They never rock the boat. Say yes to everything. Some of the most annoying traits don't want to raise conflict, can't make a decision, right? It's conflict avoidance. So, we've all got our strengths, but we've all also got our annoying pieces. And, how many relationships, without getting too grandiose about it, but how many relationships could be saved if we were a little bit more objective, a little bit more empathetic, and, understood either the person we're getting in a relationship with or the one we're in a relationship with a bit more.
Makes sense. So what do you think are the most important elements of a loving, long-lasting relationship?
Look, I think the key thing is that, and acknowledge, so there's a couple of things here. I think there's most of all the acknowledgement that we tend to attract someone who has similarities to us, but also has pieces of who they are that are different to us. So the bee's going to be attracted to someone that's a little bit messy. That's what it's kind of about. Where again, going back to what we said earlier. So first point is we're somewhat attracted to someone who's different to us. No one wants everyone finishing the sentences for them. No one wants someone reorganising the dishwasher if that's what your little pride and joy is. No one wants that. And so the first thing is we're attracted to difference. The second thing is, to some degree, what our purpose in a relationship is to learn and grow, and through love and connection and companionship from that other person. There's no doubt the chimp is going to be attracted to someone who's more stable, right? And the stable person is, should just release and let go and have a little bit more fun, as an example. And they're not meant to copy. So then you're not meant to look and kind of go, wow, my partner does it that way, I must do it that way. That's not what this is about. But we go back to that example before, if you've got a chimp and a bee in a relationship, the chimp's going to be out having fun, the bee's home, polishing the place with an inch of its life, getting it all perfect. and fantastic at that, by the way. Absolutely fantastic. We've got shirts colour-coded, socks in their right place. Ideally, the chimp would be learning about, I need to be slightly a bit more, less impulsive, a bit more organised. And ideally, the B would be actually learning, wow, there's someone who just goes out and has fun all the time. The whole thing's about fun. Maybe I could loosen up a little bit. So they're the first two things. We're meant to learn and grow from our partners. Of course, the moment we take things personally and we get really annoyed with the opposites, we're heading for code red. The third thing we need to look at is that, what really drives them. What situations do they thrive in? Are they their best in? And also working out how we can support them when they're not having a bad day. So if you do those 5 things, and Nikki, there's probably 100 more, but if you do those 5 simple things, then all of a sudden you're acting, not reacting. You're likely to be a bit more empathetic and supportive. You don't get surprised as much. And I'm not suggesting that you would, that you stay in a relationship that's not good for you, but at least you can see that stuff coming, and you might get ahead of the curve a bit.
True. This is true. So how can people find out which critter their partner is and learn how to try to prevent arguments and disagreements in their relationship?
Fantastic. So look, a couple of things. We've got some. We've got the website at crittercode.com. So just as you would spell critter and code on there.com, where they can go and have a look, go and do the test, get the Curb Your Critter report. The book's available there. We're on Instagram at CritterCode and also Facebook at CritterCode HQ. So follow us on the socials. Look, and Nikki, knowing that we were coming on and knowing your great reach of an audience, we've also put on a code that I'll share with you in a second, where your audience, if they go through and do the test for $17 and they get the Curb Your Critter report, can also get a free copy of the Critter Code book. So we've organised a code for that, just as in in support of your great audience, so that they can have a real life experience of it, but also explore other elements of maybe their boss or their friends, or maybe even their kids, because you can start to see this stuff at a very young age.
Ah, find out what kind of critters they have in the house.
Yeah. So look, the test is the best way to do that, because you're actually asked a set of specific questions about, do you see the person doing this? Is this how they behave? But you've got the book, which is also available as a second add-on option there that covers off every critter, gives you an overview, talks about what their panic button likely is, what sets them into code red, what their burning desire is, also what their personal mission is, what they're really here to do in life, what are some of their hidden quirks. And with the Curb Your Critter report, and we talk about Mindhunter, I was doing some work with a very elite police department in some of my corporate work a few years ago, and they could actually predict how people were likely to behave based on the words that they used. So
wow.
done quite a bit of research into that, and also with the Curb Your Critter report, when you actually complete the test and you get the report on your critter, there's also a list of what we call master and disaster words. So what we know is that each critter gets really excited about certain words, and also other words actually trigger some of their fears and panic buttons. So we've got those lists available. That the feedback been great about that. If you use the words that they like and they warm to, and if you weave them through some of your discussions, it creates greater empathy and understanding.
Interesting. Well, very good. Well, I'll tell you what, I will have all that information and all the links on my website. They can get that, and there'll be a replay of today's show at www.lovecoachjourney.com/crittercode, CritterCode. So they can get all of that right there. So, and as I said, my critter just came running up here on the couch.
Fantastic, Nick. And Nikki, I'll send this across to you. But the code that we've got for your listeners is Ready for Love 21, and 4 is the number. I'll send that across so you can put that up also.
Awesome. Okay, ready? The number 4, love, and 21.
21. That's it.
All right.
And the book will be just put the code in. Complete the test for $17, and they get a free copy of the book, PDF copy.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you very much for that.
My pleasure. Pleasure.
All right. Sounds great. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed the show and learned lots about your critters. And see, they can do that about their partner and their children, and find out about the whole zoo they have at home, huh? I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. A bit of fun, bit of lighthearted fun, and great way to start, understanding a conversation about things that we bump into anyway. It's not like, and you're exactly right. It can be very complex if you don't see, the personality patterns, but the dilemma is you're bumping into them anyway in your relationship. So, bit more information can make things a little bit easier to actually navigate some of those tricky situations.
Definitely. And right here at the end of the year, a great way to start out the new year, too. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And listeners, I'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.